Friends, the time has come for P.P. Arnold. I'm going to be dedicating a lot of time to her, so I hope you sit back and listen and really enjoy all that she has to tell you about her career and all of the magical records that her voice touched. So let's begin with a record called The Time Has Come by P.P. Arnold on Sophisticated Boom Boom with Sheila B and WFMU. Hi, this is Sheila calling from New York.
Hi, Sheila. How you doing?
I'm excellent. How are you?
I'm great. You know, it's just like really, really nice to meet you because I didn't, you know, I didn't know about you, you know, because I don't know about your show.
Yeah.
But I've been checking you out online, and it looks like you got it going on for sure.
That's a wonderful way to describe me. Thank you. Well, you know, I'm such a huge fan of yours. I actually moved to London when I was 18 years old from New York, and I started hanging out with a lot of record collectors, and they got me into a lot of the British, you know, female singers. And then, of course, I came across your records on Immediate. And so, like, The First Cut is the Deepest and The Time Has Come. And If You Think You're Groovy. I mean, these are all records that have been so dear to my heart. And then you come out with this new album. And I'm like, I feel the same way about your new songs as I do your 60s songs. So this is remarkable.
Oh, that's so lovely. You're making me have goose pimples here.
Oh, it's a beautiful record, and your heart, you can hear your heart so deeply in this album. And so, yes, I want to talk to you. I want to start with this new album, actually, because it's been 51 years since your last official album, Kafunta, 1968. So I'm wondering what inspired you to make this new record, The New Adventures of P.P. Arnold?
Well, you know, I'm always inspired to make music, and I've been like, you know, I've done so much stuff that hasn't been released in that period. I mean, I've definitely been just still being as productive as I can be. But the music business, and when you're hot, you're hot, and when you're not, you're not,
Yeah.
So I'm just like so happy that I didn't give up.
Absolutely. And we
there have been times when I was definitely ready to retire, as they say, but I don't really think that retirement is in my bones, really.
It doesn't seem like it. So I'm wondering with Steve Craddock, because I know that let me just tell listeners that Steve Craddock founded the band Ocean Color Scene in 1989, and he's also a touring member of Paul Weller's band. And now I know you, Pee-Pee, have a long history with Steve Craddock, so I'm wondering how you first met and how this new album came to fruition with Steve.
Well, I first met Steve around 1994. I was doing a musical, like during my down sort of like recording times. I've done a lot of musical theater. So I was doing this musical called Once on This Island. And we were like on tour in Birmingham. And I was called to the stage door one evening, and there was Steve and Foxy and the whole band standing there with a big bouquet of flowers, introducing themselves, and that's how we first met. I met them there at the stage door, and we made the connection that evening, which was so lovely, And then shortly after that, around 1994, 95, that's when the whole sort of like small faces resurgence started happening, It was as if, the small faces, everybody had forgot about the small faces. And then suddenly, all the mods and all the indie bands, we all got together and did that tribute to the Small Faces album.
So I want to play you that tribute to the Small Faces that P.P. Arnold did with Primal Scream. It's a cover of The Understanding featured on the tribute album called Long Ago's and Worlds Apart from 1996.
There's one thing I can say.
You just heard P.P. Arnold and Primal Scream covering The Small Faces, The Understanding, which they recorded in 1996. And we will now return to my conversation with the legendary soul singer P.P. Arnold. And we are discussing her latest album, The New Adventures of P.P. Arnold, which is her first album in over 51 years. And it was produced by Steve Craddock of Ocean Color Scene. And so her and I continue discussing how her and Steve Craddock first met and began making music together.
Steve and I just connected. We have this kind of strong connection through our love of Steve Marriott, really.
It's the love of Steve Marriott. Okay.
Yeah, through both of our love of Steve Marriott and all those immediate record days. And, he's just like a musicologist about all that stuff. He knows absolutely everything that we did. So I started going up to Birmingham, and we just started working on some pre-production demos around that period. I did the Marching Already record with them, and did a couple of TV shows, and then we just decided to start doing some pre-production demos. And then, politics, record industry, politics got in the way, Ocean Color Scene. We actually did a single. We recorded the different drum track, and that was released as a single around 96 on Universal, but they weren't really into the track, so it didn't really get a lot of exposure. I think we did one TFI Friday television show.
Okay.
And then that was it. It just kind of like fizzled out, and then they were having problems, And I always tend to work with, my producers have always been artists themselves, so if something is going on in their camp, it always affects what's happening with whatever we might be doing together.
What you're mentioning is that some of the songs you recorded with Steve at that time in the 90s, like Different Drum and I Finally Found My Way Back Home, are now on your new record.
It's just fantastic.
Oh my God, it's so great. Your version of Different Drum is my favorite version by far. To me, it just kills all the ones that came before it.
Thank you. I mean, it's a great song.
Yeah, but you sparkle on it. Your voice, you're shining on that song. It comes through. And so I'm wondering, what made you decide to do it again? Does Different Drum, does it have a special meaning for you?
Well, we decided to do it again so that we could have control over it, because basically we did it, Universal. We did it with Universal, and it didn't get any exposure, so we just decided to do it again.
You and I travel to the beat of a different drum. Work
All right. I am
All right.
I am in conversation.
Sophisticated boom boom. Love that.
Isn't that good? So I'd like to go back to your childhood, and I'm curious what was playing in your household as a young child growing up in 1950s Los Angeles?
Everything was playing. Everything was playing in my house. You know, I was born into a family of gospel singers, so like you know, gospel, blues, jazz. You know, I had a young uncle who was really into jazz, and you know, all my family are from Texas, so you know, they're all into the blues, and then we were into all of the you know, like all of the R&B. We used to listen to KGFJ, which was the R&B station back then.
And when people asked you as a child what you wanted to be when you grew up, was a singer your answer?
No.
Oh.
No, it wasn't. The thought never crossed my mind. I mean, I've been singing all my life, and I'm singing in church from the age of 4 in the junior choir, but I never ever thought about doing it it wasn't an ambition of mine, because my father had planted this legal secretary thing in my mind. That's what they had. You know,
wow.
That was their dream for me, to be a legal secretary. Because, you know, back then, for a young black girl to be a legal secretary, that was a big deal.
Okay.
You know, they didn't even think that maybe I could have been a lawyer. just be a legal secretary, and that'll be cool. And that was the direction I was headed in.
Oh, my goodness.
Until I ditched my music appreciation class that day. And that's what kind of changed my life, really. Yeah, I was, you know, I don't know if you've heard the story, but I was like, I got pregnant as a young teenager. You know, young, in love, infatuated. And I never ever, the thought of ditching a whole day of school would never cross my mind, but I was so in love.
Oh, so you ditched school for a boy.
I ditched one class.
Okay.
I ditched one class. I ditched my music appreciation class.
Got it.
You know, to like hang out and do a bit of snogging.
A bit of snogging.
Yeah, you know, because I love kissing. You know, when you're young, you love to kiss and all of that. You know, so but that was it. I just thought a little light, you know, petting and everything, and I just got swooped on, and unfortunately, I got pregnant. So that changed my direction, you know, really, from school, legal secretary, and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Because my father maybe, you know, the guy was much older than me. So, you know, when I look back on it now, you know, you didn't know about grooming and all of that kind of stuff in those days. You know, if somebody was 4 or 5 years older than you, it was just like cool. You know, you didn't realize that. Anyway, that's what happened, and I got married, and so I was in a very abusive teen marriage. And one Sunday morning, you know, I was like, I was married, and I was like, I had 2 kids. I'm 17. I've got 2 kids, and I'm working 2 jobs.
Wow.
And you know, it's just like going anyway. I was like preparing for the week, doing my laundry in the laundry room of my apartment one day, and I just said a prayer, and I asked God to show me a way out of the hell that I was in. You know, that I had created for myself. I took responsibility, and, you know, and I had 2 lovely babies. So I was just like dealing with it, really. And I went inside, and about an hour later, I received a phone call from an ex-girlfriend of my brother, Maxine Smith. who was singing with a girl named Gloria Scott. Both of Maxine and Gloria also had, good careers in the music industry after Ike and Tina. But Maxine called me out of desperation. And she just said, Pat, you got to help us. You got to help us. Because the girl that was supposed to, they had this audition to be Ikettes, and the girl that was supposed to go with them, who was also a ex-girlfriend of my brother's, didn't show up. Oh. And so Maxine called me to, just out of desperation to help them out. So she just she hung up the phone. I told her, no way, my husband's not going to let me go. She just hung up the phone and said, we're going to come and get you. and 30 minutes later, they were at my house. So I lied and told my husband that I was going, to the shops or something. And next thing I knew, I was in Ike and Tina Turner's living room singing, dancing in the street.
Oh, my God. Your prayer was answered.
I'm telling you. Yeah. I mean, that was like a quick response. I got
Seriously.
An instant response. So, we finished the audition, and Tina goes, right, girls, you got the gig. And I go like, oh, no, not me. I can't go. I'm in trouble already. I got to go home. Yeah. And so Tina just kind of said to me, well, if you're going to get in trouble for nothing, why don't you ride up to Fresno with us and at least see the show? So, that day it just, the obedient wife I just thought, I never got a chance to do anything. I had really messed up my teenage years, right?
Wow.
So I went delinquent and went with them to see the show up in Fresno, which is like 300 miles from Los Angeles. So, of course, I didn't get back home until around 6 o'clock the next morning. And, I got in big trouble. But as soon as I walked in the door and I got fired on, I just thought, wow, it was like he knocked some sense into me. And I remembered that. I remember my prayer. And I just sort of it's just like the Spirit just moved it. It was just my destiny.
Absolutely.
It was just my destiny, and so next thing I know, I'm on the road with Ike and Tina Turner. The first night, I didn't even have any high heel shoes. I wore Tina's high heel shoes with toilet paper stuffed in the toe.
Wow, that's hard work considering the kind of dancing you had to do with the Ikettes.
That's right. I'll tell you, that kind of dancing that I did with the Ikettes and all those years later have guaranteed that my high heel sneaker days are over.
Right.
For this tour.
Oh my
Definitely.
God. Oh, just hearing you relay this story is just so remarkable, and you just think, really, thank God that you prayed so strongly and your prayers were answered, and as you say, the Spirit moved through you to take this different path. And then you're on the road with Ike and Tina Turner, and you're in the UK, right? And Mick Jagger's hanging out with you in London, and he takes.
Oh Lord!
Tell me the story of how Mick Jagger persuaded you to stay in the UK.
Well, it's a funny story, actually. It's really a funny story. It's really funny because after I was able to, left my husband and everything, and I was like an Ikeette, and I had this boyfriend in the band, Gabriel Fleming, this trumpet player who protected me from Ike, right? But I caught Gabe with another woman the night before we flew into London. So I flew into London, a free spirit, and London town. There we were in London, and it was just like, oh, man, it was just amazing. Totally different from, all the sort of segregated kind of things that we were used to dealing with, back home.
Absolutely.
And so I didn't even know who the Rolling Stones were, to be perfectly honest. so yeah, met Mick. You know, he was just so funny. He used to make me laugh. You know, it was as if Mick could have been black, he would have been black. But, you know, he had all the moves, you know, like he was like all the talking. He would try to talk like us and walk like us. And, you know, we sort of showing him dance moves, helping him get the mashed potatoes together. And, yeah, so we just became friends. And then when the Stones tour finished, Argentina, we stayed and did another couple of weeks just with the review. And I got a call from Mick one day, you know, inviting me to lunch. And he asked if I would be into staying into England because his manager, Andrew Oldham, had this label, Immediate Records, and they really would like me to stay in England and sign to the Immediate label. So, you know, I had never, ever even thought about being a solo artist.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was like, you know, opportunity was knocking again.
Right.
And it was just something that happened that I just thought, well, I'll just stay because I was definitely going to leave the review when I got back to the States. Because, you know, my time with Argentina and dealing with Ike and all that stuff, it was definitely over because Ike gave me a really hard time in the UK. He was not happy about me having so much fun hanging out with Mick Jagger.
Oh boy! Oh, now I understand. Okay, well, that kind of worked out perfectly. That you were already intending to leave the group, and then here you are.
I think that's what happened, you know, because Mick knew that I was going to leave. He knew I was going to leave because I had so many problems with Ike while I was there, and so so they asked me to stay and. I called my mom, and we were debating on whether I should stay or not, you know, and my kids. So we just decided that I would stay in 6 months. I would stay in 6 months and check it all out. And if nothing happened, I would come home. And if something happened, I would come home and get my babies and come back to England.
Yeah.
And in 6 months' time, I had the hit with First Cut is the Deepest.
I would have given you all of my heart, but there's someone who's torn it apart, and he's taken almost all that I've got. But if you wanna try to love again, baby, I'll try to love again, but I know the first cut is the deepest, baby, I know the first cut is the deepest, but when it comes to being lucky, he's hurt. When it comes to loving me, he's worth. But when it comes to being lucky, he's hurt.
conversation with a serious musical heavyweight. She is P.P. Arnold, who began her career as a member of Ike and Tina Turner's backing band, the Ikeettes. She then launched a solo career in London, signed to Immediate Records, and cut the first version of Cat Stevens' The First Cut is the Deepest, and then Chip Taylor's Angel of the Morning, many other singles, and 2 albums called The First Lady of Immediate and Kafunta. And when Immediate went under, she collaborated with Barry Gibb of the Bee Gees and Eric Clapton to make a record that was never released at the time. And she also worked as a background singer for The Small Faces, Eric Clapton, Dr. John, Nick Drake, later Peter Gabriel, the KLF, and Roger Waters of Pink Floyd, and of course so many more. And she's just released her first album in 51 years called The New Adventures of P.P. Arnold on Ear Music. So, the last song you heard was P.P. Arnold's second single, The First Cut is the Deepest, which was a big hit for her and Immediate Records. And P.P., for your fourth single, If You Think You're Groovy, you worked with the Small Faces, who wrote, produced, and arranged the record. And I'd love to know how you ended up working with the Small Faces.
Well, we were label mates.
Yeah.
We were label mates. The Small Faces and I, we both signed to Immediate around the same time. We were the same age. Mick and everybody were about 3, 4, 5 years older than us. We were like the babies, right? And we were like the youngins. We were all the same size, the same age, and Steve and I, we just hit it off instantly. We just always loved to sing together. So we were label mates. And so everybody used to meet. Immediate was a really, really cool label.
Yeah.
And everybody, we had a music room. Everybody used to meet there at Immediate. And lots of writers. Dick James' music was right next door to where Immediate Records was in New Oxford Street. So all the writers would be there, and so Mike Hurst, Dick James is like where Steve lived right around the corner as well, and he was like connected with Dick James. So Mike brought First Cut to the table, and I loved the song straight away because it was my story. It was just my story. I just related to that song, going through what I had gone through and, trying to find myself still quite innocent, naive soul, dealing with the music industry, trying to find myself and open my heart to find love again.
Yeah.
I'm still searching.
So I'm just imagining you. I mean, you are this stunning woman, and you are in London from Los Angeles. You're surrounded by the Rolling Stones, the Small Faces, Andrew Luke Oldham. I mean, all of these like hot British men who are probably very attracted to you. What was that like?
I don't know. I was surprised. I didn't know that everybody saw in me because I was so introverted and so shy. I had no idea I was as cute as I was back then.
Wow. You were like one of the most beautiful women.
I just had no idea.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing. Luckily, Jimi Hendrix was there at the same time. So Jimmy and I, that's a whole nother story.
Oh, boy.
How we met. And Jimmy, and then the way the universe sort of did that, Jimmy lived in Montague Square, and I lived right behind in Bryanston Mews East. So that whole neighborhood was pretty rock and roll, actually, because Steve Marriott lived a couple of blocks away in Devonshire Place, and Mick lived in Marylebone High Street in Harley House. So, it was just like crazy, and so Jimmy helped me to like really kind of stay rooted in myself, because I was really shy and quite just didn't know what was going on. And he just used to always tell me that I just needed to just go with the experience,
Good advice.
go with the flow. And so that's what I was doing, and I was having fun.
Yeah.
But I was working.
Yeah.
That's what people don't realize, that it was like work. Back then, we were all working very hard. We were like on the road all the time. The whole party thing for me was like kind of short-lived anyway, because I got my kids 6 months later.
Right.
I went home and got my kids and brought my kids back. So, my party has always been at the gig.
Not a bad place.
Yeah, the gig is my party. So yeah, it was great. I definitely had a lot of cutie pies to choose from, and I did pick and choose a few cuties.
Yes.
And
we're going to talk about one of those cuties.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you kept them a little bit separate.
Oh yeah, they were separate.
Yeah,
they were separate.
Yeah.
Saying that, everybody back then had more than one lover.
Oh, I bet.
So.
So I want to play. I want to play one of the tracks that you did with the Small Faces, If You Think You're Groovy, and then we'll come back and I want to talk about the B-side of this record. So here's P.P. Arnold with If You Think You're Groovy on the Immediate label on Sophisticated Boom Boom with Sheila B on WFMU.
So much for me to do and to know and to be and to When you think you're grooving, you don't even move it. There's no denying. My dreams were real, but where were you? Now my dreams have really changed. They're rearranged. They're still for two, but not you. So, baby, you think you're groovy. You don't even move it. There's no denying.
am in conversation with the great P.P. Arnold. And P.P., I wanted to talk about the B-side of If You Think You're Groovy, which is a very powerful and moving song called Though It Hurts Me Badly, which you wrote and Mick Jagger produced it. And I read that this song was inspired by your relationship with Steve Marriott of the Small Faces. And I wondered if you would share a bit about this song and your relationship with Steve.
Well, first of all, that's not totally true because I actually the song was an inspiration from my relationship with Mick. Actually, my first relationship was with Mick, and then Steve and I we hooked up later.
Got it. Oh, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. So basically, it was with Mick, but it was also to do with the whole thing of me coming. It was my first interracial experience, you know. And back in those days, a little young, black woman from Watts, hanging out with the Rolling Stones. That was weird. That wouldn't have happened in the States,
Right.
But because of being in London and England and the attitudes being so different, there I was now dealing in a totally integrated, cosmopolitan environment. So, but it was still kind of not cool on either side in those days. Of course, everybody... I was a new young black girl on the authentic thing on the block.
Yeah.
But, so everybody, was interested in knowing me because of, like, the music as well as being cute. Musically, kind of had it going on as well. We had the whole sound, Madeleine Bell and Doris Troy and singers like that. We had that whole gospel sound that everybody was into. So it was like that the whole musical thing is what brought us all together as well.
Right. And
it was just a fun time. And even though my relationship with Mick is how I got to stay, is how I stayed, but it wasn't planned like that, you know. Mick wasn't my man, you know what I mean? Mick was a busy boy, so Mick was a very busy boy.
Yeah.
So, then he was like producing, he produced all the original songs, my own original songs. He produced them. I had never even thought about writing songs or anything, and he said, you got to write the songs. So, Though It Hurts Me Badly was the first one.
It's an astounding song. I mean, there's so much feeling in this song. I mean, it's heartbreaking. Given, you're singing about this love relationship and how this outside racism is preventing, your joy, essentially, because, right?
That's right.
And so, I mean, you were experiencing this, like, despite, I guess, England being quite progressive at the time. And did you feel pushback from, say, Mick's gang and your gang that, like, people did not approve?
Oh, no.
Okay.
The music industry, it didn't exist in the music industry.
Got it.
Per se.
Okay.
But say, like, Mick didn't take me home to meet his family or anything like that.
I see. Yes, and actually you talk about that in the song.
Yeah. But Steve did. Steve Marriott.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about Steve.
Yeah, Steve is cool. So, so Mick and I, we were just really friends. And then, of course, Mick and Marianne, that was the connection for Mick. And so that was great. Mick and Marianne were happy. I was happy doing my thing. Mick and I were friends.
Yeah, so going back to, I want to play listeners, Though It Hurts Me Badly. It's such a stunning song. And then we'll come back and discuss its reappearance on your brand new album. So here's P.P. Arnold with the first song she wrote, Though It Hurts Me Badly, on the Immediate label from 1967 on Sophisticated Boom Boom with Sheila B on WFMU.
Every time he sees me, he pretends that he can't see. And though it hurts me badly, I know my baby loves me. Oh, 'cause every night when the lights are low, I hear somebody at my door. I know it's him out there, and I know that I still care for my baby. Both his mom and his daddy say that he shouldn't see me, and though he loves them dearly, he thinks they're being so silly, but he still listens to what they say. So I will be patient and wait for the day they realize he's a man, and then they'll understand that he loves me. Why can't they leave us alone to live a life of our own? We're not hurting anyone, we just want a chance to show them that this love is gonna last. Ooh. La 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 la. But he still listens to what they say. So I'll be patient and wait for the day they realize he's a man. Then they'll understand that he loves me. He loves me. That man loves me. Oh, why can't they leave us alone to live a life of our own? 'Cause my baby loves me and he needs me. I need him too. Yes, I do. He's my best friend, and I love him. Oh, I need him, my baby. Just me and my baby. Me and my, yeah, yeah, yeah. Me and my baby.
We just heard P.P. Arnold's own composition, Though It Hurts Me Badly, the B-side of If You Think You're Groovy, which was released by Immediate Records. And P.P., a new version of Though It Hurts Me Badly, appears on your new album, The New Adventures of P.P. Arnold. And I'd love to know why you decided to revisit it.
Well, it was actually Steve's idea. You know, I've always loved the song. You know, it's got that kind of psychedelic blues vibe happening in it. And Steve and Paul Weller, Paul loved it, and you know, and it was their idea to do it. You know, so I thought, yeah, why not? In the same way that Diff and Drum never got the exposure that we wanted it to have. Though It Hurts Me Badly never really got a lot of exposure.
Yeah.
It's true it was the B-side, but nobody really, you know, it wasn't like a commercial tune per se. So that's how Steve wanted to do it, and we just did it.
Yeah, bravo,
and
Steve, for that
it.
suggestion, because really it's such a beautifully written song. It's so unconventional, but there's so much depth in it, and I'm glad that now people get to hear it again, you know?
Oh, thank you, Sheila.
Yeah, really, I mean that. You're listening to Sophisticated Boom Boom with Sheila B on WFMU East Orange, WMFU in Mount Hope in New York City and Rockland County at 91.9 FM and online at WFMU.org. I am doing an interview with P.P. Arnold as well as a retrospective of many of her great records. And in the process of doing this interview, I decided to contact her collaborator, who she just mentioned, Steve Craddock, who produced her brand new album, The New Adventures of P.P. Arnold. And I also wanted to talk to him about P.P.'s the first song she wrote that I just played you, called Though It Hurts Me Badly. So we're just going to quickly switch over to this interview with Steve Craddock, formerly of Ocean Color Scene and a touring member of Paul Weller's band. So the album kind of mixes covers and originals and a few reworkings of P.P. Arnold originals. And now the one that I have in mind is Though It Hurts Me Badly, which I think is really one of the most powerful songs in her repertoire. And even more interestingly, it's the first song she wrote. So what prompted you to revisit and rework that song?
Well, that's fascinating. It's because... number one, I love the B-side of Groovy. It's on the B-side of that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I just thought there's something quite haunting and amazing about that song. So it seemed like an obvious thing to go and try, and also kind of like a behind the scene joke, really, is Brendan Lynch, Paul Weller's producer, back in 1990, sampled the little guitar part that I believe is played by Mick Jagger, and the piano melody that's played by Nicky Hopkins on Pat's original. They sampled that and then put it into a loop for a song, which ended up becoming a song called Into Tomorrow, which is his first single off his first comeback album. And so when I'm playing on a guitar, I'm playing Though It Hurts Me Badly. In my head, it's just like, well, this is Into Tomorrow. And if you go back and listen to the two records, you can hear it. And I just think there's something very haunting about that tune. And I think we've nailed a more sort of grown-up version, and I think we've done a good job of it.
You did a really good job, and it's just nice that it gets to see the light of day again, because it's really just tucked away on the B side of If You Think You're Groovy, and I feel like it's really been forgotten in a sense, that record.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's a shame that not many people know that song, really, isn't it?
Yeah, seriously. Well, at least it's back out there in a new way, in a beautiful way. So thank you for that. And
you're welcome.
And another song that I wanted to chat about was one that you co-wrote, Baby Blue, which opens the record, and I feel it really sets the scene for this album that is so full of, heart and feeling. And did you write this song for PP in mind, or how did it emerge?
Right, I didn't write it. Right, the writer was Steve Grizzle, but he gave me, bless him, he went out when he gave me half of the publishing for the song because he was so enamored by the version that we had done of his song.
Oh, wow.
Which is very sweet of him, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but the reason, the thing is, maybe no one would know that song anyway, because Steve Grizzle used to be the bass player and lead singer in a group called the Boaty Man in the mid to late 80s in Birmingham.
Okay.
And I would go and watch them fanatically. I just thought they were wonderful, amazing songs. And this song, Baby Blue, that they would sing, I just thought, how come this isn't, really popular?
Yeah.
Anyway, sort of 30 years go down, however many years go down the line, and I've always kind of, you kind of bank songs if you're a musician. You think, oh, that might be good one day, or just ideas, And it was one of them that I thought, okay, this is the time to really, because it's like a Bacharach and David song, I think. It is. In a way. Mm-hmm. And it's just, there's something very uplifting about it, and even though it's ambiguous, it's kind of you get a really good feeling from the lyric in it, I think, and the melody. And
Don't hold me down another day. 6 of the best words you could ever hear him say. A symphony fell from his lips compared to earlier tunes he'd knocked together quick. Hadn't been any wider, right, or greener than the other girls you knew. Now you're baby blue. You should be standing out in peacock colors like you used to do before you were baby blue. Nobody said, isn't he sweet? I wish instead of meeting you that he'd met me. The girl said, baby, found my dear. The boy said, well, I never did. And I say, come to tea on Tuesday. Hadn't been any wider, right, or greener than the other girls you knew. Now you're baby blue. You should be standing out in peacock colors like you used to do before you were baby blue. Greener than the other girls you knew. Now you're baby blue. You should be standing out in peacock colors like you used to do before you were baby blue. Baby blue. You should be standing out in peacock colors like you used to do. Baby blue. Every time he sees me, he pretends that he can't see. And though it hurts me badly, I know my baby loves me. 'Cause every night when the lights are low, I hear somebody at my door. I know it's in my head, and I know that I still care for my baby. Both his mom and his daddy say that he
So once Immediate Records went under in 1970, I understand that Barry Gibb stepped in, and is that correct? And how did you end up befriending the very handsome Barry Gibb, who I have a lifetime crush on?
Well, this was 1968. Immediate folded in 68.
Oh, it was 68. Okay.
And and I was Jim Morris, who I was seeing at the time, was sort of assistant for Robert Stigwood. And so he like sort of drove Stigwood and just sort of like PA for Stigwood. And so Barry was a big fan of my version of To Love Somebody. And so Barry wanted to meet me. And so Jim and I went to meet Barry and Linda. Barry was already with Linda. They were like, they were just madly in love. And so yeah, we met, and it was we were both at a crossroads really, because Immediate had folded, and I had no idea where I was going, even though I had been, like you say, I'd been a part of this whole happening label scene. When it all folded, I'm suddenly in London on my own, not really knowing a lot about the industry or how it's run, because I was just sort of like looked after through Andrew and everybody. I didn't know anything about the business, so I didn't know how to reconnect. So everybody else, went their separate ways, but of course they knew the industry and how that industry had developed long before I arrived, and who all the players were and all of that. And I've just never been, I didn't know how to network, I wasn't really a party girl.
Yeah.
And I had my kids, and so Barry and Linda and Jim and I, we used to just kind of like hang out. And Barry, the Bee Gees had split up, and Barry wasn't recording or anything, and he was kind of frustrated. He wanted to get in the studio. I wanted to get in the studio, so he just started writing songs for me, and we just started working on these songs, and he gave a dinner party one evening and invited Ahmet Ertegun to the dinner party, and we sort of like did an acoustic set of some of the songs that we had been working on. And Ahmed turns to Stigwood and goes, "Stiggy, you haven't signed this girl?" and Stigwood says something like, "Oh, well, we're working on the paperwork right now," or something. So that's kind of like how I got to deal with RSO.
Oh, good for Ahmet Ertegun. He can spot talent for sure.
That's right, and so that's kind of how the RSO deal came together. And Stigwood, even though he didn't really want to manage me, he did anything, whatever Barry wanted, really. So Barry wanted to record me, and, so I kind of like, once again, I was stuck in the middle of those politics that were going on with the family. Robert wasn't really into me. He wanted to get the brothers back together, understandably. I'm a big Bee Gees fan as well. But, so that affected when we recorded all of that material. And
then how did Eric Clapton?
It got put on the shelf. And
right.
Because Stigwood wasn't really into it.
Okay.
He wasn't into the stuff that Barry and I did.
Yeah.
So he was still managing me, and he had sort of like Eric he managed Eric as well, and Eric was getting ready to go on tour to do the Delaney, Bonnie and Friends tour with George Harrison and Billy Preston, and so Robert put me on the tour as the opening act. And I put together a band. You know Ashton Gardner and Dyke?
No, I don't.
The band Ashton Gardner and Dyke, Kim Gardner, Tony Ashton, and Roy Dyke, they were like a real kind of like blues, funk kind of trio, happening trio of the time. And Steve Howe, I got Steve to play guitar, so that was my band.
Yeah.
Ashton Gardner and Dyke with Steve Howe on guitar, and I had Leslie Duncan and Kay Garner. We just went out on that tour, and we just all had a ball. And so when the tour finished, Robert studio time for Eric and I to go in and cut some tracks. And so we just basically, the band was still there, you know, the Delaney and Bonnie band that later became the Dominoes. They were still there, and so we went in the studio and just recorded all of those great covers that were going on at the time. Can't Always Get What You Want, Brand New Day, and Medicated Goose.
So good.
Yeah.
So you have all of these amazing Bee Gees songs. You have all of these songs that Eric Clapton is playing on, and this was at the time. Was this meant to be an album called The Turning Tide, and then it got shelved, or no, it wasn't.
It was just supposed to be my next. It was my next album. It was the next development of P.P. Arnold.
Got it.
Really,
Yeah.
all of those recordings. So that's why I kind of got like stuck in time.
Yeah.
And it was like during that time, the 70s in my book. The 70s are like the lost years because I was lost, really. And that music was supposed to be my next album.
Right.
So who knows what would have happened if that music had been released at that time when all the British invasion was going on in America and everything. You know, which is how I went back to the States. I was trying to be a part of that,
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, is there one main reason why they decided to shelve the album? I mean, was it just that Robert Stigwood was not interested, or was there? I mean, is it deeper?
Robert was not interested.
Okay, right. Oh.
Robert was not interested in me as an artist.
And then, so how was it that, I think it was 2 years ago, that you managed to get The Turning Tide out into the public finally? What happened that you finally, after years of fighting, were able to obtain these master tapes? I mean, was it just, did you have someone researching or calling Universal every week begging them? I mean, what was the final?
Well, no, I was the one that was bugging them. I was really bugging them. But I called Dick Ashby, who looks after Barry, and Dick introduced me to a guy named Bill Levinson. And so Bill located all the recordings. I mean, some of those tracks they were in the vaults in Universal in London, some were in vaults in Germany, some of the tracks were in vaults in LA somewhere. Wow. So Dick brought them all. I mean, Bill brought it all together, and I had all the original analog recordings. So I had to bake the tapes, got the tapes all baked and digitalized. And with the help of Paul Weller and Steve, we managed to get The Turning Tide mixed. Yeah. Paul let us have Black Barn Studios to mix the stuff. His great engineer Charles Reese mixed them with Steve. Steve worked with him a bit on that, and so The Turning Tide opened the door to the new adventures.
Right. So, I like that. Yeah. I like that. So I want to play something off The Turning Tide, but I haven't chosen a song because I actually would love for you to choose one of the songs that I play. Like which song off that record means the most to you, or would you like listeners to hear?
Well, I don't know. There's a lot. It's just a matter of choice. We could do the covers. I love those ballads. I mean, I love The Turning Tide.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful ballad, you know.
Is.
And it's just listening to that and my vocal to those songs, you know, singing those things when I was like, what was I, 19 or 20 or something?
All right, so I'm going to play, listeners, The Turning Tide, which is a Barry Gibb song released by the Bee Gees, and which you recorded yourself and finally saw the light of day many years later, right?
He actually wrote that song for me. I recorded it before the Bee Gees.
Oh, you did?
It.
Okay.
All of those recordings, I did the original.
Oh my God, I didn't know
Barry
that.
Gibb songs. Yep,
oh,
I sure
wow.
did.
Okay. Oh my God, so they were all written with you in mind.
That's right. We used to sit at Eaton Square, and, you know, songs run through Barry like a river.
Oh.
You know, he sits there all day and just writes and writes. And it was during the time when we were creating some magic together.
Yeah, and create magic you did. All right, so here is P.P. Arnold's The Turning Tide, the album that finally saw the light of day 2 years ago on Sophisticated Boom Boom with Sheila B on WFMU.
What would I say if you should turn away from me? I do not know if there are words that I can see. I only know that I am reaching too high. And who are we to touch the wind and say our she is coming in? The turning tide. Don't you tell me the answer in your changing mind, I don't know if love can last. When time is gone and we are on the roundabout, would you still laugh and be a clown when time runs out? Or would you say that I am reaching too high? And who are we to touch the wind and say our she is coming in? The turning tide. And who are we to touch the wind and say our she is coming in? The turning tide. The turning tide. The turning tide. The turning tide. The turning tide.
right, I'm in conversation with the legendary P.P. Arnold. So P.P., in all of the performances of yours that I've watched online and all the interviews that I've both watched and listened to, it's so clear that you have this truly joyful spirit. And I think you radiate light and you radiate love, and it's in your smile, it's in your laugh, it's in your voice. And yet your journey in life hasn't necessarily been an easy one. So I'm wondering, where do you think this positivity and this lightness and this unbreakable spirit comes from?
Just faith, just keeping the faith, and, I've always had to be strong. I've had to be strong. My life, as a child growing up within my family unit with my siblings and the history of my childhood, I always had to be strong, and I always had to be positive. And my mother was really, really beautiful. She had a beautiful spirit, and no matter what, she went through, and, she went through a lot harder times than I did, but she always had a smile. She always taught us to smile and, and be nice. It's just easier, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think. And so, yeah, and it's just the way, joy and happiness helps you get through. Well, joy, because happiness can sometimes be fleeting. But, joy is something that is inside of, it comes from deep within. And, and I love it. And I love to sing. And that's my joy. That's my joy. I sang my first solo when I was 4 years old. And it was a song called "We Are Soldiers in the Army." And when I sang the verse and I got to the chorus, everybody in the church started shouting. So that taught me at an early age that, that I could make people happy.
Yeah.
When you shout in church, that means you're happy, So that's why I sing.
Yeah.
I sing because it makes me happy, and everybody seems to like it as well. So
yeah, you've been moving people for a very long time now, and you're still at it.
Well, it's a gift, it's like I've sort of managed to, I don't know how, I skipped over all the celebrity stuff and all of that. I've never been into it on that level, even though I know I'm in the industry and I'm an artist and all of that. But, for me, what I do, it's a gift. God gave me a gift, and I love to sing, and that joy has taken me through all the ups and downs of my life.
Yeah. So, P.P., thank you so much for taking all this time with me and so generously sharing your story and your history and your joy and everything. I'm so grateful. I really am.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for wanting to talk to me. I think you're really cool, too. I'm checking you out. I'm on you.
And I hope that you come to the U.S. at some point if you do.
There'll be no strings to bind your hands, not if my love can't bind your heart. And there's no need to take a stand, for it was I who chose to start. I see no need to take me home. I'm old enough to face the dark. Just call me angel of the morning, angel. Just touch my cheek before you leave me, baby. Just call me angel of the morning, angel. Then slowly turn away. what I wanted now. And if we're victims of the night, I won't be blinded by the light. Just call me angel of the morning, angel. Just touch my feet before you leave me, baby. Just call me angel of the morning, angel. Then slowly turn away. I won't beg you to stay with me. Through the tears of the day, of the years, baby, just call me angel of the morning, angel. Just touch my cheek before you leave me, baby. Just call me angel of the morning, angel. Just touch my cheek before you leave me, please, baby. Just call me angel of the morning, angel. Just touch my cheek before you
And that concludes the interview and retrospective on the great soul artist P.P. Arnold. Her birthday was yesterday, so happy birthday, P.P. And she is playing a sold-out show tonight in Gloucestershire. She's doing a U.S. tour with Steve Craddock. She's playing October the 7th in Manchester, October the 11th in London, October the 12th in Brighton, and October the 18th in Liverpool, and a few other dates in between. So you can check out her website and Facebook page if you are in the UK, and so lucky to be able to see her. I'm so jealous. I contemplated buying myself a plane ticket to go see her play in London, but alas, at least I got to speak to her so extensively on the phone. And big thanks again to PP, Gabby Green, and Steve Craddock for giving me their time and for arranging this interview. And her new album, which you've heard during this retrospective, is out now on vinyl and CD, and you can buy it on her website, pparnold.com. So if you liked what you heard, please do support her. She's an independent artist, and all of these great artists do need your support. Wow, it's like I just went into her world and I'm coming up and I'm like, ooh, there's other people out there, not just P.P. Arnold, but wow, to immerse myself in that for an hour and a half was a real pleasure. And thank you to everybody on the comments board who sent through such beautiful comments throughout the show.